Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we've got a chapter from a memoir, and
Okay.
it's a pretty intense one. The author's about to go through a major spiritual awakening.
Wow.
Yeah, and there are hints of some really wild synchronicities, including a connection to a 12th century saint. It
Interesting.
all starts on January 1st, 2017.
Oh, wow.
New year, new beginnings, right?
Absolutely. And starting a journey of self-discovery on New Year's Day,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty symbolic,
Yeah.
wouldn't you say? It's just a conscious intention to embrace change,
Right.
embark on a new chapter.
Exactly, like setting an intention for the whole year.
Right.
And to make things even more interesting, the author is corresponding with someone they call an earth angel.
Now, Archangel might sound a little out there, I guess,
Yeah.
but it seems like in this context, it refers to like a guide or a mentor
Mm-hmm.
operating on a spiritual level.
Okay.
Someone offering, wisdom and support
Yeah.
on the author's journey.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got this author feeling this pull towards something bigger.
Right.
They've got this earth angel whispering wisdom in their ear.
Yeah.
Where does the 12th century saint come in?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The Earth Angel shares a quote,
Okay.
and it turns out to be from Hildegard von Bingen.
Hildegard von Bingen.
Now, Hildegard was a Benedictine abbess,
Mm-hmm.
a composer, a mystic.
Wow.
She even made significant contributions to natural science
Uh-huh.
back in the 12th century.
Wow. A true Renaissance woman centuries before the Renaissance.
Right.
I have to admit, though, I'm not super familiar with her.
She's not exactly a household name,
Yeah?
but she was a remarkable figure.
Right.
And what's intriguing is that the author initially doesn't know who Hildegard is either.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yet they feel this deep resonance with the quote,
Huh.
almost like a recognition on a soul level.
Okay, I'm sensing a theme here. A new year, a feeling of anticipation, a mysterious mentor. And now this quote from a long-gone saint that somehow strikes a chord
Yeah.
deep within the author. It sounds like the universe is sending some pretty clear signals, don't you think?
It certainly seems that way. And this is where the concept of synchronicity comes into play.
Okay.
Carl Jung described synchronicity as meaningful coincidences. Those moments when seemingly unrelated events
Yeah.
converge in a way that feels profoundly significant.
Yeah.
And the author begins to experience a whole cascade of these synchronicities.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, shortly after encountering Hildegard's quote,
Mm.
the author stumbles upon her music in a very unexpected way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're at work, listening to Hildegard's compositions, when a coworker, who also happens to be a close friend,
Okay.
walks in.
Oh, I bet the friend's a total Hildegard aficionado.
Not exactly,
Hmm.
but the friend immediately recognizes the music
Okay.
and mentions that their father used to listen to it all the time.
Huh.
And here's where it gets even wilder.
Okay, hit me with it.
It turns out the coworker's father and the author's father were brothers,
What?
and their mothers were sisters in the Catholic Church before they got married and had families. Talk about a small world.
Whoa, that's crazy. What are the odds? So they're practically family
Exactly.
without even realizing it.
Right. And this seemingly random encounter, it further solidifies the author's feeling that they were being guided toward Hildegard for a reason. But it doesn't stop there.
There's more.
The very next day,
Okay.
the author finds 2 books about Hildegard on their desk.
No way.
And get this, they also receive a gift from the same coworker, Hildegard von Bingen hand cream,
Hildegard von Bingen hand cream.
from her abbey in Germany.
Okay, now that's just too much to be a mere coincidence. It's like the universe is hitting the author over the head with Hildegard von Bingen. What do you make of all this?
Well, it's a fascinating example of how synchronicity can operate. These seemingly unrelated events, they cluster together, creating a sense of meaning and purpose,
Right.
almost as if the author's being nudged in a specific direction.
And all this from a single quote. This Hildegard must be pretty special. I'm dying to know what happens next. So we've got the author diving headfirst into the world of Hildegard von Bingen, guided by these uncanny synchronicities.
Right.
Where does this newfound fascination lead them?
Well, the author devours the Hildegard books, feeling more and more drawn to her wisdom. And then they open one of the books almost at random
Yeah.
and land on a passage about
Orchids.
orchids. Okay, orchids. Not what I was expecting, but I'm intrigued.
Right.
What's the significance of orchids in this context?
The passage talks about the potential for spiritual blossoming,
Mm-hmm.
urging the reader to become the blooming orchid by approaching life with good intentions.
Okay.
And this idea of the orchid as a symbol of spiritual transformation, it really resonates with the author.
I can see why. It's a beautiful metaphor. Orchids are known for their delicate beauty and resilience.
Right.
They often bloom in challenging conditions,
Yeah.
pushing through adversity
Yeah,
to produce these stunning flowers.
exactly. And it's as if the universe is about to give the author a very literal manifestation of this metaphor. Oh, really?
Remember that coworker who gifted the Hildegard hand cream?
Of course. The one with the surprising family connection.
Well, shortly after, the author discovers this passage about orchids.
Yeah.
The coworker shows up with 3 blooming orchid plants. One for the author,
Okay.
one for themselves, and one for another mutual friend.
Wait a minute. 3 orchid plants. The number 3 has already popped up a few times in this story. The Holy Trinity. The 3 gifts on the author's desk. It's almost as if the number itself holds some sort of significance.
You're picking up on a key point here. The author has already noted the recurring presence of the number 3 in their life,
Right.
and they see it as a symbol of divine guidance, a confirmation that they're on the right path. So the arrival of these orchids, and triplicate it no less, it adds another layer of meaning to the unfolding narrative.
Okay, I'm totally on board with the synchronicity train now. The universe is speaking and the author is definitely listening.
Absolutely. And, the orchid, it becomes more than just a symbol for the author. It becomes a reflection of their own internal state, a kind of living barometer of their spiritual journey.
How so? Did they start talking to the orchid or something?
Not quite. But the author notices a direct correlation between their emotional well-being and the state of their orchid plant.
Oh, interesting.
For instance, when the author faces a particularly difficult period in their marriage, a time filled with emotional turmoil,
Yeah.
what happens to the orchid?
If it's mirroring their emotional state, I'm guessing it starts to wilt.
You got it. The blooms begin to fall off, one by one,
Oh, no.
as if the orchid is shedding its beauty in response to the author's inner turmoil.
That's both fascinating and a little bit eerie. It's like the orchid is a physical manifestation of the author's emotional energy. But isn't it possible that it was just a coincidence? I mean, maybe the orchid was just reacting to changes in the environment.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
We can't rule out the possibility of external factors
Right.
influencing the orchid's health. But the author notices a pattern as they begin to heal
Okay.
and align with their newfound sense of purpose. Guess what happens?
The orchid makes a comeback.
Exactly. A new spike begins to grow,
Wow.
signaling new life and a change in direction. It's as if the orchid is mirroring the author's own process of transformation and renewal.
Okay. I'm starting to see how the orchid becomes so central to the author's story. It's not just a pretty plant. It's a symbol of their inner world made visible. But let's go back to the marriage for a second. We know the author was going through a tough time.
Right.
How did this spiritual awakening impact their relationship?
Well, the author describes experiencing this profound energetic shift, a moment where they feel connected to what they call divine love.
Divine love.
It's a feeling of being fully seen and accepted, a sense of wholeness and unconditional love. And this experience leads to a major realization.
What did they realize?
They realize that their marriage no longer aligns with their true self.
Oh, wow.
They describe falling in love with themselves all over again, a process that leads them to fall out of love with their partner.
That must have been a heartbreaking realization. But it sounds like the author is prioritizing their own growth and well-being,
Right.
even if it means making difficult choices.
Absolutely. They describe feeling a sense of peace, knowing that they're choosing a path of authenticity and soulful love, even though it's a painful process.
And remember, this is all happening while the author is dealing with some pretty serious physical challenges, right?
We haven't even touched on the author's hospitalization for a critically low platelet count.
Oh, yeah, that. Tell me more about that. How does this medical setback fit into the author's spiritual journey?
Well, for the author, it's not just a setback. It's another turning point.
Okay.
They actually call it a denouement,
A denouement.
a moment of clarity and resolution. It faces them to confront their own mortality
Right.
and reevaluate their priorities.
So even amidst physical challenges, the author is finding deeper meaning and purpose. They're not just surviving, they're thriving.
Exactly. And throughout this tumultuous period, they feel guided and supported by a host of angels, each representing a different quality they seek to embody: beauty, grace, joy, peace. you name it.
Wow, a whole angelic entourage. It sounds like the author is tapping into a powerful source of strength and inspiration.
They are. And this connection to the divine, it helps them navigate the challenges of separation,
Yeah.
the grief of losing a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and the uncertainties of the future.
Right.
It's a reminder that even when we feel alone, we are never truly alone.
That's a beautiful message. But even with all this spiritual support, I imagine there are still moments of doubt and fear. After all, the author's going through a major life transition.
You're absolutely right. Despite the spiritual highs,
Mm.
the author also experiences moments of intense vulnerability and self-doubt.
Mm.
They realize
Yeah.
that they're not fully ready to embrace the love they've attracted, a realization that forces them to confront their own limitations.
So it's not all sunshine and roses on the spiritual path.
Right.
There's real work involved, inner work that requires honesty and courage.
Precisely. And the author demonstrates that courage by taking practical steps,
But
but to create more comfort and ease in their life. They get TSA pre-check. To avoid the stress of airport security, they obtain a permit for darker tinted windows on their car
Okay.
to protect their sensitive skin grafts.
Wow, they're not afraid to get down to the nitty-gritty details.
Exactly. And it's attention to their physical needs.
Right.
It shows a commitment to holistic well-being. They're not just focusing on spiritual growth. They're honoring their physical body and creating an environment that supports their overall health and well-being.
I love that. It's a reminder that spiritual growth isn't about denying our humanness.
Right.
It's about embracing it fully.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as the author takes these practical steps and continues to connect with their own divinity,
Yeah.
something remarkable happens. They plan a trip to visit a close friend from high school,
Oh, okay.
a soul sister, as they call her.
Uh-huh.
And this trip turns out to be far more than just a casual visit.
Oh, what happens? Does the friend turn out to be another earth angel in disguise?
Not exactly. But the author describes feeling like they're walking into their divinity during this trip.
Wow.
They experience profound moments of déjà vu, a sense of remembering past lives, and an overwhelming feeling of coming home to themselves.
Whoa, that sounds intense. It's like the trip triggers a whole other level of spiritual awakening.
It does, and remember that orchid, the one that's been mirroring the author's emotional state.
Of course. How could I forget? It's practically a supporting character in the story.
When the author returns home from the trip, feeling a newfound sense of peace and completion, they find that the first of the 7 buds
7 buds.
on their orchid's new spike has bloomed.
7 buds. Is that another symbolic number?
Absolutely. The number 7 has deep spiritual significance across various traditions. It often represents completeness, perfection,
Okay.
and spiritual attainment.
Okay, I'm sensing another big reveal coming. What's so special about the timing of this first bloom?
Remember how the author's journey was sparked by a quote from Hildegard von Bingen?
Right. The 12th century saint who seems to be orchestrating this whole spiritual adventure.
Exactly. And guess what day the first orchid bud blooms?
Don't tell me it's Hildegard's birthday.
Close. It's the feast of St. Hildegard von Bingen, September 17th.
No way. That's incredible. It's like the orchid is sending its own message, confirming the connection between the author, the saint, and this unfolding spiritual journey.
Exactly. And the synchronicity, it further solidifies the author's belief in divine timing and the co-creative nature of their experience. They realize they are not just a passive recipient of events. They are actively shaping their reality through their intentions and choices.
Okay, this is blowing my mind. We've got synchronicities galore, a blooming orchid that seems to have a mind of its own, and a connection to a 12th century saint. What else could possibly happen in this chapter? We're in the home stretch of this chapter now, and you've got me on the edge of my seat. Where do we go from here? We've got blooming orchids, angelic guidance, and a 12th century saint making her presence known. What's next on the author's spiritual journey?
Well, remember how the author had this initial aha moment with a quote from Hildegard, the one that started this whole chain of events?
Yeah, the quote about becoming the blooming orchid, the one that turned out to not be about orchids at all.
Precisely. The author later discovers that the quote, at least as it was shared with them, wasn't entirely accurate. Hildegard's original text actually refers to blossoming orchards,
Orchards.
not individual orchids.
Wait, what? So the whole orchid thing was based on a mistranslation. That's hilarious.
It is quite ironic, isn't it? But it also reveals something fascinating about the nature of spiritual experience. It suggests that meaning is often co-created.
Okay.
The author was so primed to see the orchid as a symbol
Right.
that they projected that meaning onto the quote, even if it wasn't explicitly there.
That's a really interesting point. It's like the author was so attuned to the symbolism of the orchid that it became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. And this realization leads the author to contemplate the power of their own interpretation, the way their beliefs and expectations shape their reality. It's a reminder that we all have a role in creating our own experiences.
So even though the quote wasn't literally about orchids, the symbolism still held deep meaning for the author. It was true for them, even if it wasn't factually accurate.
Precisely. And this leads to a deeper exploration of personal truth. The author begins to connect the dots between their mom, their earth angel, and both Hildegard's the historical figure and the person who shared the quote, sensing a link to the very concept of energy itself, or MC2 as they put it.
Hold on, MC2. As in Einstein's famous equation, what does it have to do with anything?
Well, remember, the author is experiencing this profound spiritual awakening, a shift in consciousness that's opening them up to new levels of understanding. They're seeing connections and patterns they hadn't noticed before, and they come to believe that MC2 represents more than just a scientific formula. It represents a universal principle, a fundamental truth about the nature of energy and its relationship to matter.
Okay, I'm starting to see where they're going with this.
Yeah.
They're seeing MC2 as a kind of spiritual code.
Yeah.
A hidden message embedded in the fabric of reality.
Exactly. And this realization fills them with a sense of awe and wonder. They feel like they've stumbled upon a profound secret, a key that unlocks a deeper understanding of the universe and their place within it.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing. But let's go back to the orchid for a moment. We left off with the first of 7 buds blooming on the feast of St. Hildegard. What about the other 6?
Well, as the author continues to embrace their divinity, to integrate the lessons they've learned, the remaining buds begin to open one by one.
And I bet the author sees this as another sign, another synchronicity confirming they're on the right path.
You know it. The author interprets the 7 buds as representing the 7 rays of divinity and the 7 swords piercing the flaming heart of Mother Mary.
Wow.
Symbolizing their own spiritual growth and the fulfillment of their divine intention.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the power of synchronicity, the symbolism of the orchid, the challenges and triumphs of spiritual awakening, and even the mysteries of MC2. What does the author ultimately take away from this experience?
Ultimately, the author's journey is a testament to the transformative power of self-discovery. It's a story about embracing our own divinity, trusting our intuition, and finding meaning and purpose in the most unexpected places.
And it all started with a simple quote, a nudge from the universe that set them on an incredible path of growth and transformation.
Exactly. And it leaves us with so many questions to ponder. What if we all have a sacred orchid within us, waiting to bloom? What would it take for us to embrace our own divinity and step into our full potential?
What would it look like to recognize the synchronicities in our own lives and to trust the unfolding of our own unique journeys? This deep dive has been a powerful reminder that the answers we seek are often closer than we think, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Thanks for joining us on this incredible exploration.